So, we are here today to talk about all things housing. So you might have seen the Home Sweet Home campaign, which kind of looks like this. It's all blue and cloudy and stuff. But if you missed it, that is what this video is for. We're just going to talk through some of the things that we discussed in the presentation to hopefully help you with housing and such things. So, the first thing, obviously, when you're looking for a house is housemates. So, do you think that's important?
Choosing housemates is so difficult.
Yeah.
I mean, in first year it was like, you have a group of like 20 friends and it's like, who do you live with? Which ones are the best? And obviously you want to live with the people you're closest to.
Yeah.
But a lot of the time that doesn't work out because you're too similar and your routines are too similar. You end up spending every minute of every day with each other, and by the end of the year you hate each other.
Yeah, but at the same time you can also choose someone that might be like really close to you initially, and then they just kind of like disappear off into the distance and you just like sat on your own in the living room watching The Apprentice, like this.
Especially if they get a boyfriend or girlfriend.
Oh, yeah.
And then you're just left. Coronation Street becomes your best friend.
Literally.
I mean, sometimes you could say opposites attract. You might be completely different people but have the same values, and like, you might actually like, okay, you both might party hard but you want to work hard as well. So I think as long as you've got those same values and you both understand each other, or the group understand each other, then they're alright.
A lot of it boils down to respect too. I mean, you think that you'd respect your best friend, but a lot of the time that's not how it is, because you just and you just let things go because you can't be arse washing up because you're your best friend and they're doing the same thing. Whereas if you live with someone you don't know as well, sometimes you want to make it cleaner for them. Does that sound right?
I'm a clean person, live with me.
Yeah, I mean, this year I'm living with, well, people that are probably closer to my girlfriend than me, and I feel that I want to clean up more for them than I did when I lived with my best friends. And I don't really know why, but I just feel like they'd think less of me if I didn't do my washing up.
Aww,
my dear housemate here, I love, I mean, looking after her. Last night she went out, I put out some water and some Nurofen for her when she came back in.
It was really cute.
Into a nice clean kitchen, and really appreciated that.
I did appreciate it. Yeah, so the moral of the story, make sure you know exactly who you're living with. Okay, what's next?
Well, I've got one more point to make.
Oh!
If you're in first year and you're choosing your housemates, it's going to sound really, really silly, but you need to make sure they're going to get back into university in your second year. If someone isn't going to lectures and isn't passing their assignments and isn't passing their exams, there is a good chance that they might not make it to second year. And it sounds really harsh that you should judge them on that, but I mean, you don't want to get stuck paying their share of the house.
And I think that links back to the values that you share, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, let's face it, not all of us are great at going to lectures. I mean, I wasn't. My first year it was pretty poor, but I still did my work, so I still managed to pass. But you just got to be very cautious when you're doing it, and sometimes you don't know what you're getting yourself into.
Yeah, good point. I like it.
Cool. Next.
Okay, so next, once you've got your housemates that you know who you're going to live with, you need to think about how much money you're going to be able to spend on rent, which is the bane of my life.
You should all now know how to budget. Seriously, you should. Honestly, I can't budget. I know these two probably can budget better than me, but
he's an accountant.
He's an accountant. He still can't. But it's one of those. Just make sure that you at least try and set out how much your expenditures you have a month, and at least then you can be like, right, I can spend 20 quid on drinks that week, 20 quid on food, and then think about rent. You've got
20 quid on drinks. That's not enough.
Well. If you're a lightweight like you, maybe, but and then obviously think about rent and just think about everything that's going out, and then what money do you actually have coming in. Like, obviously you've got a big instalment of money coming in at the start of the semester, for example, and then how are you going to spread that out?
In my first year, budgeting wasn't really a priority because you have the benefit of having £2,000 overdraft.
Yeah.
When you've got the second year and you haven't done anything over summer, that overdraft is maxed out and you do not have that to rely on, so you're £2,000 worth off essentially. So no one's going to expect you to write down £20 on this, £20 on that, or adhere to that actually, because I mean, look at me, my food bill is clearly not going to be 20 quid a week, no matter how much I say it is. I mean, that's 2 Dominoes, are you kidding me? So, I mean, it's just not being stupid with your money. If you know your skin and you know you have no money, do not borrow money off someone that you can't pay back. And that comes in a lot to play, even with your housemates sometimes. So budgeting and housemates can link, because if you're borrowing money off your housemates, you're not able to pay them back, they're going to get pissed off at you. And then, I mean, it just all has a knock-on effect.
I think you've got to think of it like this. You get to the end of the semester and you've got no money, you've got, say, £10 a week to live off. You live off it, don't you? You make it work, you make it happen. That means you can live off £10 at the start of the semester. You know it's doable, it's going to be a struggle, and like it's not going to be easy, but you know it can happen.
Well, I mean, you can make B&M your best friend, or like
Yeah,
Maggie
literally.
noodles, or like value noodles. We all know they're quite crap, but I mean, it fills a hole.
Just get a few bits of sweet corn in there. You'd be sound. Now, I think the reason why it's on this list though, and the reason why we talk about it is because realistically, once you know what your budget is, then you know exactly how much you can pay a month or a week for your rent. So when you're going house hunting, you're not going to go looking for places at like £120 a week because you've only got 70 in your budget for rent. So I think it's about, like you say, finding your housemates that can afford the same thing as well, just because you don't want to be living somewhere that you can't afford and then it having a huge impact on
And you're the only
everything.
one in the house that can't afford to go out.
Yeah.
And I mean, you just got to judge it on your student loan as well. I mean, I was quite silly in my first year when we signed a contract because all my housemates were like, yeah, let's sign it, and I was like, I can't really afford it, but my mum and dad were just like, if you want it, go for it, and we'll help you out if you can. But then you don't really want to borrow money off your mum and dad when you progress through your life, especially like in the second year of university and stuff. So you got to think about this and actually judge it on your student loan payments. I mean, if your rent's 1,500 and you're getting a 1,500 quid student loan, then what are you going to live off? And so yeah, you just got to judge it on your student loan really, because you can't always rely on a part-time job and you can't always rely on your parents. So sometimes your student loan's got to do. And you just got to suck it up really, and if you have to spend a £5 on noodles that's going to last you a week, then so be it.
Make it work.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next one, which I know Rosie, who is not here today, she's a very busy lady, she would talk about this a lot, so don't rush. She would want us to say that she literally is just rushed into house with housemates every single year that she's gone to get a house and has just realised that it's a huge mistake. You know, signing the contract, not looking, just panicking and running somewhere, or even being like pressured like by landlords and stuff and letting agents, which can be a thing. You know, it's not all landlords and letting agents that do it, but sometimes they're like, oh, well, the next group's coming in a minute and they might get it before you, so then you're like, shit, need to sign the contract, oh my god, I'm not gonna have a house. So it's all about just like stepping back and being like, do we actually need this house? No, I don't. Maybe there's another one. Yeah.
I mean, there's always this rumour mill going around that if I don't get my house sorted, I'm not going to have anywhere to live next year, which is complete and utter bullshit. I've lived here for, 3 years now, and I've stayed here over summer, and I still see in letting agents and adverts and whatever else, people still trying to get rid of houses a week before Fresher starts.
Yep.
There's always houses, there's always rooms. I mean, sometimes you've got to be prepared to live with people that you might not know, but if you can't afford it and you're not ready to rent a house, then don't do it.
Don't do it.
It's really as simple as that. There will always be houses, and the benefit of waiting until the summer to sort your house is that you won't have to pay a summer retainer, which is a lot of extra money.
Yeah, summer retainers can be very detrimental. Also, something that can happen as well, landlords and letting agents, whoever you're living with, can ask for like 4 weeks extra rent in April, and that's to cover August, isn't it? Because most, like, whoever you're living with, landlords will charge the rent when your loan comes in, so then all the rent for the term will be paid and you don't have to think about it like it is in halls, which obviously means that the loan comes in September, so the whole time in August you're not having to worry about paying rent, but still it's a good thing essentially. But you get to April and you know your student loan's just about come in. Has it come in or just gone out? No.
Yeah, and the thing is, in April, if you're starting out in first year, you still have your halls payment to make, but then you're also going to have to pay that summer months as well for the coming August. So whenever I paid it, I think we had £1,050 to pay in April to our new landlord, but we also had like £1,100 to pay for our accommodation for halls, so that leaves you with absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
Which isn't that bad because uni finishes quite soon after that, but you just got to be prepared and you just got to know what's actually happening. I mean, just know in your head, really.
Yeah, so I think just straight off that, knowing what you're doing, actually read the contract, know what contract you're getting into. So you should get an assured short hold tenancy, which means that in the contract it'll say exactly how long you're living there for, exactly how much the rent is, and exactly who is responsible for the repairs, which generally is the landlord or the letting agent, whatever. But yeah, literally sit there with a highlighter and just go through, just so you know exactly what you're selling yourself in for, because there can be really sneaky clauses in there that say like no prams in the house and, you know, don't walk too loudly. Like genuinely things like that can be snuck in there, so just make sure that you know exactly what's in there before you're signing it.
A big one for students is the number of people allowed in houses and overnight guests, which, I mean, everyone's probably, or most students probably the same opinion that they can have whoever they want in their house, but I mean, if you've signed a contract that says you're allowed 8 people in your house, then realistically, you got to adhere to your contract as much as you don't like it. So I mean, you got to think about all these things. You got to remember you're a student, and if there's stuff in the contract that's going to go against your student values or your student life or how you live as a student, then don't sign the contract. I mean, contracts are a big thing, and people don't realise these are legally binding contracts. I know I'm going to sound like a boring old man what I said, but when you sign that paper, you are liable to pay that share for however long that says. And you also got to remember is in halls you're paying for, I can't remember, is it like 39 weeks? Whereas in most contracts you're going to sign are going to be close to 52 weeks. So you're paying a lot of extra money, so know what you're signing. Yeah,
and on that, don't worry if you don't know what you're looking for either. Come and speak to the advice team, speak to parents, speak to friends, second and third years who have read through contracts before.
And know what they're doing.
And know what they're doing. And then also on that, there's different types of contracts. I think you spoke about a joint tenancy, where a group of you will sign the contract, but then will be liable for, say if one person drops out, you'd then be liable to pay their bills, to pay their rent, for example. So one option, but a lot safer bet, I'm sure you'd agree, would be the single tenancy contract. So each one of you in the house signs a single tenancy for yourself for that room, and if you decide to quit uni, then that contract expires, and the rest of your housemates won't have to pay the rest of your rent or bills. So definitely a lot safer bet.
But you'll still have to pay it.
You'll still have to pay it,
I mean, you will be very lucky if you get to sign a single tenancy. But if you do, then and just remember, I mean, it all is a knock-on effect. If you come back to what we first talked about, I mean, if someone drops out of a house because they didn't get back into uni, and that's your joint tenancy, and you're liable for that, and it's a lot of money, a lot of money, especially if you don't get that room filled, and you don't want to be, because if you live with 6 people, one person drops out, and the other 4 people in the house can't afford it, but you have to afford to pay for that person, then it's not really fair on you, and it's so annoying, it's so frustrating, but I mean, you're all in it together, so I mean, the joint tenancy definitely links to who you pick to live with.
Don't take this as bringing like a down on it or negatives, it's just different options, and if you're unclear, don't be worried about it. Rewind. Just come and speak to us, come and speak to the advice team, or just like speak to parents, because obviously they'll have seen contracts before and they'll know what's going on, so don't feel worried about it at all.
And make sure and send the contracts to your guarantors. Do not sign your guarantor forms without your parents' permission.
And do not sign more than one contract.
Yes, oh my goodness. So we've been talking about this throughout the week doing the presentations. We heard this little rumour from somebody that apparently a student signed 4 contracts, which meant that they were responsible for 4 houses worth of rent, which is absolutely ridiculous. They thought that this signing it would literally just hold it for them until they decided, but no. So I think that I'm kind of like leading the way, aren't I? Yeah. That's why the next point is signing on the dotted line, which obviously talk about the contract, but once you actually sign that piece of paper, you cannot get out of that contract. You sign that and you're responsible for whatever it says in that document for the length of time. So generally it's about 44 weeks, but you can, as Steve said, like it spans all the way up to 52 weeks. So just kind of make sure you know how long that you're paying rent for, because you cannot get out of it once you've signed it. So.
And I mean, signing on the dotted line is important. You are signing up a year's worth of student finance. So only sign when you're ready. I know I keep trying to be really serious about this, and I want to have fun, but I mean, stuff like this is important. I mean, people really don't realise what they're signing up to sometimes, and they don't read the contracts and they just jump ahead, and it kind of really like screws them over a bit, if you're being brutally honest. So I mean, only sign when you're ready, irrelevant if your housemates are ready or not. Let them sign whatever they want. You do not sign anything until you're ready.
Cool. What's next?
Housemates.
So, deposits are a sum of money decided by the landlord. It's generally about 4 weeks worth of rent that they'll make into like a deposit. So you'll pay that to the landlord initially, and then they have 30 days to put it into a deposit protection scheme. I think there's a few different ones that you put them into, but basically this different company will just take it out of your hands and obviously out of the landlord's hands as well, and protect it until you're ready to move out. Obviously that doesn't mean that you're entitled to the full amount back, because obviously if you've like broken all the walls down, which is a bit crazy, but you know what I mean, if you've like broken the house, just broken the walls down, then you're also not going to get the money back. But either way, it's protected, so no one can touch it. Yeah, I think that's kind of it. It's important.
And then
you need to realise that that is your money, and how you treat your house is how much of that you get back, really.
Let's give you a scenario. So 3 mates all living in the same house. Let's call him Dave. Dave moves out two weeks before you're all supposed to move out. Leaves his room in a bit of a tip, and says, "Oh, it's all right. I'll be back next week to tidy it all." A couple of weeks comes back. No sign of Dave. Dave's room's still a tip. There's stains on the walls from blue tack and stuff. There's burns on the carpet. And junior housemates are there trying to scrub the walls, trying to sort everything out, but nothing's really happening. So the landlord comes around and says, "What's all these marks on the walls? What's the burn on the carpet?" And says, "Well, I can't give you a full amount back. I can only give you 50 quid of your £200 deposit back." So that sort of left the other housemates in the shit a bit, isn't it?
Yeah, literally.
So, as I say, with deposits, make sure you're communicating and being honest with other housemates, and not stitching each other up.
I mean, and generally, the landlord will only take deposits out if whoever's made the damage. But if there's not enough money to cover that, then you've signed a joint tenancy, so you're going to have to pay that between you if their guarantor isn't willing to pay it. And usually there isn't that many issues with tenants having disputes about how much each other get back. I mean, we have a lot of issues about people getting deposits back sometimes.
Yeah, it can be.
But it's not always the landlord and letting agent's fault, it's sometimes the student's fault as well. And it's probably 50-50 to some extent, because a lot of students are really well behaved in the house and really cleanly and will still not get the deposit back. Similarly, there's loads of students that wreck houses and smoke inside and whatever else, and it kind of wrecks the property and they don't get the deposits back. And there's very little we can do if you've messed up the property. I mean, we're here to advise and we're here to help, but I mean, you have to behave like an adult, really. I mean, we're not here to tell you what to do. I mean, have as many parties as you want, or smoke inside if you want.
Within reason.
At your own risk, be it. I mean, the house I lived in last year, I'll be brutally honest, me and my housemates messed it up quite a lot, and we didn't get our deposit back, and there was nothing we could do about it. We accepted it. Deposit was gone, and we got over it. But I mean, we were kind of willing to accept that we weren't getting a deposit back by the time we moved out. So. And that's just the way it goes sometimes. So you just got to be willing to accept things. Do you know what I mean? If you don't clean.
Yeah, on the same. I know you can have landlords sometimes that will be very picky about a house that you've kept clean all year, and they'll find a bit of dust in the corner, but like, oh, gonna have to £100. Gonna have to clear that floor again. It's too dusty, sort of thing. So fight your corner if you believe in if you've kept the house clean and that.
We will fight with you every step of the way.
File it. With all your documents.
Don't let Pat.
If ever you have an argument against your landlord, you want to have as much evidence as possible to back up your case. Would you agree?
I would definitely agree, because you can avoid disappointment with all that at the beginning. Do an inventory, take a picture of the house, even when you're going to view it, so that when you actually sign the contract and you might see the house again, you can go in and check, has any of this changed? Am I still signing for the exact same house that I saw a few weeks ago? Blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
So Pat
My Program is an app that you can use. A little zoom in on that. Can you zoom in on that, Elliot? No, it doesn't zoom in. Okay. So My Program, basically, there's a whole list of things that you can add to your profile as your house, pictures of what it was like when it started, descriptions of wear and tear or good things, bad things, whatever. So definitely download that program if you fancy.
But what they do with that is you input all the information, which is like amazing anyway, because then it's all in one place. But then you can I think it's about £5, and then the people that run the app will create a whole document for you and then send it to you. So definitely get that app when you're moving in.
My Program, M-I Program.
And then Program, and it's a little plus. I think you can only get it on the iTunes store though, boo. Android, sorry guys.
Someone in your house is going to have an iPhone, let's face it.
You'll be okay.
I mean, when you talk about inventory, you really got to do this. I mean, even if it's the littlest thing. I mean, just little things like a little stain on the carpet. You could end up getting charged for that carpet if you haven't taken pictures of it.
You told the landlord about it.
And I mean, landlords are. Every letting agency and every landlord in Onshore will be good at going around that house with you. So if you go around with them together, they will do the inventory checklist with you, and they will note wear and tear as well. But if you think they've only noted a little bit of wear and tear and you think it's a little bit more than that, then you can have that conversation with them at the start instead of waiting until the end of your contract and then you're arguing and you really don't have a leg to stand on, let's face it. I mean, if they've put it down that it's a little bit of wear and tear and you've agreed with that, there's nothing you can do. So, I mean, we're not trying to put you off letting at all. Housing is a great experience, but we're just trying to tell you to be careful. So take pictures and be safe. And be safe. Be safe isn't even fucking relevant, is it? But I mean, just be careful. Safe. And I mean, when it comes to keeping conversations, that is really important. Emails are the main thing, because if you've emailed to try and get something to get something fixed and they haven't fixed it, then at least you have that email at the end. I mean, stuff like washing machines, if they pack in and your landlord doesn't come to fix them, if you've emailed them, and it's always good to do emails instead of phone calls, because it's there.
There's like a trail then, isn't there?
Sometimes you have to make a phone call, but make note of when you called and what the conversation was about.
I think from all these points, it's good to, well, in my experience anyway, to have or nominate someone who's going to take control of, say, bills or files or something, just so you've got that one point of contact with the landlord. Otherwise, if you've got it all spread out between, say, 5 people, it's all going to get a bit muddled up.
We've got like a lead tenant.
Lead tenant, If you go through one person, things, well, hopefully the most organised person. Things
or boring.
Sorry?
Some would say. Well, I mean, if you think about it, if us three and Rosie
all our bills out.
After how long? We moved in September.
Are you going to do it?
I'll keep
Did you do it? Did you do it?
Filing it is important.
You said you were going to do it.
So, finally, don't settle.
Pick your housemates right.
No, but he is right. You do need to get someone that's organised to do stuff like that. I mean, I like to think I'm quite organised, but I just couldn't be arsed. And I don't think anyone else in our house really could have been arsed as well. But
and then you end up getting a court order, so...
I've never got a court
No,
order.
genuinely. it can escalate. Like, if you do not keep on top of your bills, you can get in a lot of trouble because you are using electricity and things that you have to pay for. So if you're not paying for it, then they'll come after you. It doesn't just disappear into nowhere.
I think we've gone off topic. I think this is a bit of a dispute. I think we're talking about filing things, not bills. But it's all right. I'll keep on track. Professional president. What can I say? This is why you elected me. So, finally, Lauren, over to you.
Okay, the last point, I think we've mentioned it loads, is just don't settle for anything less that you're happy for. Don't be pressured into it. If you don't want to live there, don't bleed and live there. Steve said earlier that there's houses always left till literally the week beginning, before Freshers Week. So just don't rush. Like I wrote at the beginning of this thing, it's really cringy. I'll read it to you. It says, imagine you're in a supermarket, but for houses. You're just leisurely perusing through the aisles and having a gander at all the available items. Blah, 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 blah. Right, okay, so it's really cringy, but it's just to make sure that you get the point. Because think about it. If you bought a top and that top had like a little snag in it, you're going to return it and you're going to get a new top. So basically the point of it is, if there's like damage to the house, why the hell would you even buy into it? Like, because you don't want to live somewhere that's damaged, you don't want to...
Yep.
You get what I mean?
I agree.
I'm trying to...
Yeah, and chances are, if you move into a shithole, you're not going to want to keep it clean, and you're going to leave, and you're going to get charged.
I agree.
Find somewhere nice and try and keep it nice.
Yeah.
It's really simple. People don't realise that housing has such a big impact on your student experience.
Huge.
And student experience is such a buzzword whenever you come into students' unions. But it's so important. I didn't realise this. We signed for a house till because they blah, 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 blah. We ended up living in the arse end of nowhere. And we weren't great tenants and we didn't really get on with our landlord and it just didn't work out that well. And it had quite an impact on our assignments and just wanting to get up and go to university. I mean, you feel down quite a lot of the time. And whenever you're away from home, you don't want to feel down. You want to be in a house that's happy. You want to do stuff together. You want to get on with your landlord. You don't want to have all these bills hanging over your head. So just remember that a bad house or a bad agent or a bad landlord can impact the rest of your university for that whole entire year. I mean, housing can be a great experience, and we've all had great experiences as houses.
Amazing, yeah.
So it's not about scaring you not to get a house. I mean, please go out, find a nice house, and have fun. That's what it's all about.
I think, give a few experiences, a bit of a personal... Yeah?
Well, in my experience...
I was going to go first.
Okay.
Thank you. So, in my experience, in my second year, I sort of was that fresh year running around panicking, trying to find a house before Christmas. Didn't get it before Christmas because there was all too much going on. Do you mind? So my experiences, I was that sort of keen little fresher in first year, running around before Christmas trying to find a house. I didn't find one before Christmas, but after Christmas it was me and 2 mates, and I went to the landlord at the time and said, look, it's me and 2 mates, have you got a house, a 3-bedroom house that we can live in? Came back to me, said, no, we haven't got a 3-bedroom house, but we've got a 5-bedroom, and there's 2 other girls looking for a house as well. Would you mind living with them? So we're like, hey, it's fine. Those 2 girls lived downstairs, and us 3 lads lived upstairs. So that was quite handy. And it was a really nice house. And yeah, sorted us out for the year. My second year, third year, moved on to Wigan Road, into a bigger house with a private landlord. Moved into the house and it looked like it hadn't been touched in quite a few years, and still didn't get touched for the few years that I was there.
For the 1 year.
And it goes back to that thing, obviously, that Steve's saying, if you've got a rubbishy house, then you're not going to want to look after it, and that's what happened. It was known as, and still is known as, the crack den.
Wow.
Honestly,
Our vice president lived in a crack den.
Yeah.
That is great promotion material.
so yeah, but just that was a joint tenancy, and that was just because like moving in with all the lads, you thought it'll be alright, but it turned out to be like not a horrible year, but just a horrible house to live in.
Yeah.
Lauren, what are your experiences?
I was quite okay. My second year I lived really far away on Cottage Lane. It was like, well, it's not really far away, but it's quite... Do you live on Cottage Lane?
I did.
Oh, okay, it's really far away anyway, it's a bit poo. But anyway, I lived there. It's Trex, like the fire station, and like towards Toby Carvery.
Yeah.
And it's really awkward to get to because you have to like go into town to go out of town.
So
And then you can't like win the road. Anyway, it's really awkward. And don't get me wrong, like the house was cute and I was living with cute people, but just because of the pure fact that it was, I think it was like a good 20-25 minute walk to uni, that just made me not ask, because I thought like, I've been out the night before, I just wasn't bothered, I didn't want to go into uni literally because it was so far away. And just a little simple thing like that can just have a huge impact. And my second year, I wasn't very committed in my second year, so. Yeah, it had an impact on it basically. And then third year I lived 5 minutes away. We definitely made the right decision. And yeah, it was generally great. Like, I mean, throughout the year you always have like a few little run-ins with your landlord, and they're like, well, why haven't you cleaned up when they've like come around or something? And you're like, oh, sorry. But that's basically it. Like, we're not saying all landlords are bad and letting agents are bad, because they're not. It's a proper mixed bag in Ormskirk, and probably across like the UK, to be honest, with all students everywhere. So I think the thing is like, you're not alone in like the less cringiest way you can probably say that. Everybody's going through the same thing. If you are having issues, you don't actually have to come to us second and third years or know exactly what you're going through. So yeah, just pulling mine.
Yeah, I mean, I've already said whatever, but just make the most of your time at university, and that is, your housing is a big part of your university experience. So, I mean, we're all very opinionated. Students are notoriously very opinionated. So, obviously there's going to be clashes with your landlords. I am incredibly opinionated, so me and my landlord didn't get on a lot of the time. And that's not to say they were in the wrong, and that's not to say I was in the wrong. We just had different opinions on different matters. So, I mean, everything we've gone through today probably sounds like it's putting you off a little bit or scaring you, but it's not meant to. It's just to prepare you for your next year at university and prepare you for a house. It's an important thing, and I mean, we'll be there every step of the way, and if we're not in office, whoever's in office next year will also have housing as top of their priority. So please use your sabbatical team, use your vice presidents, use your president, and use your advice centre, and even use the university for advice if needs be.
We've got an accommodation team, even though they deal with on campus mainly, like they still know everything there is to know about actual accommodation and housing and stuff. So.
I mean, obviously come to the union because
we're the
best. So, but yeah, we're here for you guys to use. We get funded for lots of things, and housing is top of our priority this year, and it will be probably for the next 5 to 10 years. It's probably never going to be perfect housing anywhere in the UK, and that's private or whatever else. So yeah, have fun, choose a house wisely, and choose your housemates very wisely.
Cool.
Have a nice day.